Yes, YouTube. Captain's log number 1. I decided that I'm going to do like a video diary of the next 6 weeks because I'm prepping. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I'm prepping for a show in 6 weeks' time, and then there is a pro qualifier in 2 weeks after that. Whether or not I do the pro qualifier is very much determined on the result of the first show, or my expected ability to progress between the two shows. But I wanted to do this video because I just wanted to like create a raw compilation of loads of footage that I can look back on and revisit any thoughts that I've had around myself, around my processes, and maybe be able to pull something from them and learn from them. But in doing so, maybe share them. I don't know whether this will go on YouTube, but share them and hopefully provide something that others can learn from as well, because I'd spend a lot of time in my own head and working things out and trying to understand myself, and I think a lot of people resonate with some of the things that I think and say. Is that a bit egotistical? It doesn't matter. And that's another thing that I do. I've just started to go, it doesn't fucking matter, right? Just be myself, be confident, and yeah, stop second guessing everything. So the point of this first video is to kind of just talk about the plan, where I'm at the moment. I suppose I could put some overlay footage of like the physique. Might do that, might not. See how that sort of plans out. But yeah, 6 weeks, it's going to be a slog. I'm going to have to push quite hard because I'm definitely not where I would want to be at 6 weeks out. But I think with a few things that have been going on for me personally in the background, where my head's been at, me and Louis my coach, by the way, we pulled back. We had to, I think, reset. I was going through a lot. I was very stressed at the time, and it didn't make sense to continue to push. And so yeah, we pushed through back up again, and weight obviously then came up as well. And I just had a week where I was kind of just chilling and more enjoying myself. I didn't take the piss, but it's taken me back a couple of weeks. So now we're gonna have to push quite hard. And when I say push quite hard, I'll give you some data, some statistics. So I'm doing 15K steps every day. Food is at, on average, 4,000 calories. I think protein's like 320. Carbs are like 550-ish, and fats might be 65. That's off the top of my head, but it's around that mark. And training 5 days a week. In terms of like lipolytics, drugs, that kind of stuff. So growth hormones at 6 IU, that's all pretty bad. And drugs, so I've been running 300 tests since the start of the year up until about 5 weeks ago. And then from 4 or 5 weeks ago, I went from 300 tests up to 500 tests. And that's been treating me really good, to be honest. I'm a massive fan, a massive believer on using, driving bioidentical compounds more than anything else. So using the likes of testosterone, insulin, and growth hormone as like the key drivers for progress, growth, whatever, because they're familiar with your body, and I feel like your body is more inclined to react well to those things. But of course, in a prep scenario where we have to think of like a cosmetic, we need to maybe implement other things, or if there are certain side effects from running high test, although I would lean towards, as opposed to using more of a non-bioidentical compound like Primo or Masteron to potentially aid managing E2, I like to lean towards using Aromasin or Arimidex, particularly Aromasin, because it addresses the cause, not the problem, right? It addresses the test converting to estrogen, not the estrogen itself. So yeah, 500 tests. That was a long way of saying running 500 tests. Now, since obviously the plan to compete has been made, we've moved from 500 tests to 500 tests and 500 mass. So I'm currently running a gram total, 500 tests, 500 mass, and still 6 IU of growth hormone. And I've got 20 microgram of Clenin, no yohimbine, no L-carnitine. To be honest, L-carnitine is in there, but I'm at a point now where I feel like there's a trade-off with stress management, and like the 0.1 or 0.5% you get from doing some of these things. So yohimbine, I think it's negligible, and I think there's some potential negative side effects of yohimbine that I don't want to be playing with. That they're all mental. And then it's just funny, innit? I won't take yohimbine, but I'm taking steroids and Clen and yeah, God knows what else. But yeah, I don't want to can't be asked with yohimbine. I think it's negligible in terms of what extra it gives you, and there's no L-carnitine. I'm not running many peptides. I am running copper, GH, K, CU, skin, hair, obviously because of the hair transplant, and that is it. I've got a long list of supplements that I'm not going to go over now, but yeah, I want to touch on more my thoughts as to where I'm at. So it will have been 3 years since I competed, And there's definitely a lot of nerves there. I mean, on paper, I don't even need to I objectively, well, I can't look at my physique objectively. That's gone out the window. That doesn't exist anymore. I know only through data that I am better. And I know that sounds really fucked, but I think that's just a psychological result of obsessing about your physique and looking at it all the time. And particularly for me, because I love posing and I love trying to distort and change my physique to look a certain way. I can get lost in what progress actually looks like until I end up looking at like 3, 4, 5 years ago. But the numbers don't lie. Last time I was on stage, fed up, fully carved, and I'd had a lot of food as well. I was like 108 kilos. And at my prep low last time, I was 106. Well, I've reached a similar level of condition at about 117, 118. I'm currently 124 kilos. So I've reached a similar, probably better condition, it definitely was better condition at 118 a few weeks back than I was when I last competed. So on paper, I put on a substantial amount of muscle, and the goal obviously isn't to be as lean, it's to be leaner than last time. So I think what I would love to do, the next week or two, I think I'll be pulling off like a couple of kilos per week. I reckon I'll get down to like sub 120 in 2 weeks time, which gives me 4 weeks to try and probably take another 4 kilos off. I'd like to get to 116. And then that gives me 1.5 kilos to feed up, because my cap as an amateur at 6'5" is 117.9 kilos, I believe. So yeah, it gives me nearly 2 kilos to play with. So that's kind of the plan. That's what I've got in my head. I think those first couple of kilos should be relatively easy to come off. But this is bodybuilding, it doesn't always go according to plan, and I may have to push a lot harder to get there. But if that's what's required, then so be it. I am nervous. I am really, really nervous. There's a lot of doubt, a lot of I think there's fear based around doubt. I think I'm just always very hypercritical. I always want to make myself and others proud of me. And yeah, that's something that I'm working on. There's something I'm searching for, I think. Externally, and I don't think it can ever be satisfied by others, which is kind of like what external gratification is, right? You end up searching for something, you're looking for something that you're missing internally, and I'm working on that. I have, by choice, I wasn't inducted, but I have therapy, and I've done a lot of work over the last half a year, and that's been incredible, and I'm like sort of navigating my way through some of these thoughts. I think what's really weird is my relationship with bodybuilding has changed a lot since having therapy in a really positive way. I don't feel like my identity is tied to it or my physique. I feel like my identity is tied to, I feel like I used bodybuilding to fulfill what I need, which is approval. Whereas now I do bodybuilding because I genuinely do love it. I really, I do love it so much. What it teaches me, who I've become because of it in a lot of ways, and just the constant pursuit of progress. It feels like something that I do to serve myself every day, and I'm moving in a direction that I'm really proud of. Anyway, I digress. Again, I like to go on these little tangents, don't I? So yeah, I'm gonna like just. Well, some of the things that I kind of tell myself, because there is nerves and there is doubt, and something that I've started to like, 2 things that I've started to really draw from in order to try and get as much out of me as possible in terms of my personal development and growth is there's a perspective, or like a mindset towards the things that I fear, right? That's something that I've really, really tried to adopt over these last couple of months. It's been amazing, in fact, because I've really felt like I've taken some really big leaps forward in who I am, because I've been doing the hard things that I wouldn't normally do, that I'm scared of doing, right? And this is another example of that. So, yeah, I've started processing my fears and doubts around certain actions or behaviors or whatever, aspirations, and I've started looking at them as if, like, if I do fail, if I don't achieve the result that I'm looking for, it teaches me something, and I grow from that. Literally, there is only growth. The only way you ever don't grow is if you isolate yourself from resistance, from experience. That is it. That is literally it. The more experience and things you face and throw yourself out, the more you'll grow. And it doesn't even matter if you win or lose. In fact, you learn more when you lose. So you will put yourself out there and you'll have these experiences. And I spoke recently publicly at Fit Expo, and first time I've ever spoken publicly, I was shitting my pants. I was fucking shitting my pants. And it wasn't a big crowd either, but I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like I was going red. I think I was like mumbling a little bit, and But I did it, and I will do it again. And I know that having done it now, I can do it, and I will be able to do it better the next time because I've done it before, and that feeling of nerves will start to wear off the more I do it. So that's something that I'm trying to mold in my mind when I start feeling those fears, those feelings of doubt and fear. The other way is because sometimes the carrot and stick doesn't work, right? You know, donkey, carrot, you know, so like, I'm kind of like guiding myself with the idea of something nice at the end. But sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes, which is another way that I've been managing my head, is being aggressive. And I've definitely got that in me. I've definitely got that aggressive, nasty streak. That sounds really bad, doesn't it? No, I think you have to. I think in order to be a strong and good man, I like the analogy that Rogan said. You know, you'd rather be a soldier in a garden than a gardener in a war, right? Like I know I can be aggressive. I know I can fight, and I don't mean that in a physical sense, although I do mean that in a physical sense. But I know I can put myself in uncomfortable situations, and I think my natural reaction is to fight, is to be confrontational. And I think sometimes it's because of that I actually try and avoid confrontation. But that's the other mentality, and it's kind of like something I used to do, and I've only just started to realise all of these little like mindset tricks because I'm raising awareness to it. Is in my first prep I used to sit in bed and I used to think about binging. I used to be like, I'm going to binge. What one thing will have is when something isn't going to affect me. Blah 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 blah. I mean, all the little things that you tell yourself. Battery died. Yeah, all these little things that you tell yourself. You know, maybe going back on your word, or maybe breaking discipline, and then you cave and you go and do the thing. And something that's really important about understanding the things that you tell yourself is you become those things. And I think when people binge, when they go back on their diet, that is like the quickest form of that, right? Like you're dieting, let's say dieting, because people will relate to dieting as much as they will, more so than they will be a prep, but anyone that's prepped will understand this. You're starving, you're really hungry, and you sat on the sofa and you've had your last meal, and and in your head you're like, oh, you know, packet of crisps or that muffin in the cupboard, or another bowl of cereal won't hurt. And it's kind of like, oh well, I can make up for it. It's only one, right? It's not going to be a lot. And before you know it, you're raiding the cupboards and you're doing exactly what you've said that you were going to do. And then you've sort of broken the seal as well, and all hell breaks loose. And it's not just one muffin or a bowl of cereal; it's several. And that's because you've opened the floodgates, right? The man at the door is no longer there, and your consciousness is the man at the door. You decide, you make that decision, and it's your unconscious, it's your subconscious that sits in the back going, you know, feeling those emotions and going, go and get some food, just go and make yourself. It's not a big deal. You aren't that person. You are the conscious version of you. I have to remind myself of that. I am the conscious version of me, and in order to remain the conscious version of me, I need to bring consciousness to those thoughts, and I need to speak to them, and I tell them to fuck off. I tell them that I am the person that I say I am. I remind myself that I am disciplined, and I do what I set out to do, and I don't go back on my word. And I do it with a level of assertiveness. I do it with a level of aggression that supersedes any other voice in my mind. And it won't happen. It won't happen. I am more aware of that subconscious thought, those subconscious self-talk moments now more than ever. And every time I catch myself talking down to myself or trying to go back on something that I promised myself when I was being my conscious self, I talk back to it and I tell it that isn't me, and I am better than that version of me, or the version that I tried to convince myself I am. And it's been serving me pretty good for the last 6 months. I've got to admit, I feel like I'm fully in control of my own mind, and it's very empowering. So they're my two pieces of advice if you want to become a better person, if you want to grow. Talk back to yourself. I did a post yesterday and I came up with it all on my own. I was very proud. Your thoughts permeate into you like seeds into fertile ground. what you, what was it? Oh, I can't remember. What you plant will grow. That was it. You tell yourself something enough times and it'll happen. You will become that person. You don't just think it, you are it. You think you binge, you will binge. You think you're a failure, you will become a failure. You think you aren't smart or intelligent or cannot speak to a camera, you will never be able to speak to a camera intelligently. I would have never, ever, 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 ever thought that I would have been able to speak publicly 10 years ago. I would have never thought I would have been able to speak to a camera like this and put myself out there 10 years ago. I would have never thought I would have been able to host a podcast and speak to intellectuals, people who I find so incredibly interesting and have meaningful, deep, and valuable conversations that people would listen to, would tune into to listen to. I would have never thought that I would be doing that with my life 10 years ago, because I used to tell myself that I wasn't those things, which is quite sad, really. But I am those things because I do tell myself those things. So there's your reminder to talk to yourself. Remind yourself that you are whoever the fuck you want to be, and it starts with the things you tell yourself. So yeah, I'm telling myself I'm going to bring my best to this show. I'm not going to have any level of guilt or disappointment because I didn't do everything that I should have been doing. I'm going to apply myself 100%, and nothing is going to change that, because that's the kind of person that I tell myself I am. I'm looking forward to whatever the result is to this show. I've worked very hard. Yeah, that's the first video. That's the first little vlog, little diary. I hope you enjoyed it. If I put it on YouTube, who knows? We'll see. In a bit.